You've probably often heard it said nowadays that there's not a lot to look forward to with the times being the way they are. So instead of Ballinrobe Musical Society, we've decided to look back throughout our history instead. And one man who's been there involved with the society for a lot of that history has been Mick Sweeney. Mick has served as chairperson of the society in the past. He's an honorary life member of the society, and he's also chairman of the Ballinrobe Town Hall Committee as well. Mick, thanks again for joining us. How are you keeping?
Very well, thanks very much, Oshin. No problem. We're all keeping well, trying to do the right thing at the time, trying to keep going as best we can.
And we all, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Mick, can you just bring us back to when you first got involved with the society? You're obviously from, not from the town originally. You're from Cork. So, how did you get involved with Ballinrobe the first day ever?
Well, I arrived in Ballinrobe on the 1st of October in 1974, Oshin. And, I came into a town in the west of Ireland, not knowing anything about it. But I wasn't a few hours in town when I realised there was a musical society. At the time, it was called the Opera Society. And that really was, I felt that it was fantastic to realise that I'd come to a town where such an organisation existed. And so that was in October 74. There was a review being held, which was a concert in early 75. So I joined it then for rehearsals late 75 for the production of the Mikado in 1976. So that was the first production I was in, 1976. And as I say, ever since been involved with it, and it's one of the best things I suppose one could do, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Yeah, and can you give people an idea of what the show was like back then? Because a lot of people that would have seen the show in recent years are familiar with the school hall and the wonderful job they make of it, the lights, the sound and everything. But give us an idea of what it was like in the old town hall back in the 70s.
Well, basically you were working on a stage which was really adapted for, for dance bands. In other words, there was never any intention of the stage being used for, shall we say, musicals or operas for that matter. But it was a fine hall. It was a very large hall, and but as I say, the stage facilities were not good at all, anything but good. And of course, your dressing rooms and that were very antiquated. Toilets were very antiquated, but look, it was a facility that other towns didn't have, and it was created back in the early 1900s. So we dealt the pack of cards we were dealt with, and you got on with it. Now the sets obviously at the time were minimal. All you had really were curtains, black curtains or gold curtains, and maybe a ramp up the back to get a bit of elevation. But from the production point of view, there was very little you could do other than, as I say, you had to work with the bare minimum. And there was no real set making as such. I think the first time that we did any type of development on the stage was for, I think, West Side Story, when we extended the stage somewhat, and maybe for one or two others where we extended the stage also and brought out a kind of semicircle. But that was about as much as you could do. You could do nothing with the wings, right? But so it was limiting. But we didn't know any better, and we got on with it. And there were some very good productions put on there. And at the time, television as such wasn't really showing other, shall we say, productions, and people weren't used to seeing live musicals and live theatre. And so therefore, for this time, it was very adequate. But obviously, it progressed. But I remember for the production of Jesus Christ Superstar, we left this stage that was there, and we built a whole new stage running at right angles to it. And that was a terrific asset because it gave us much more room, and it allowed us to put larger courses and that on the stage. But it meant, of course, a lot more work. And but nevertheless, it worked very well. And I think there was 2 or 3 productions on that stage that we used rig up every year for the musical, or for the, as they say, for the opera, as they used to call it at the time. And of course, I mean, there was a great stories about it. We were in the centre of town. Flannery's pub was synonymous with the musical, not for the fact that we were all becoming alcoholics or drinking that matter, but there was a very social element attached to it, and the famous stories of the bell being out in Flannery's and the chorus being out there and the bell being rung when they were due to go on. This kind of thing went on, and it was all, while it was taken seriously, it was very light-hearted as well. You had no aims of adjudication at the time. We did it for the pleasure of it, which we still do, but we didn't take it probably as serious as we do now. But nevertheless, the audience, as I said, I think still appreciated what was going on.
Yeah, and how big of an occasion was it in the town back then compared to what it would be today if it was on this coming week?
Well, I'd say it was as a big an occasion as it is today, actually, because while the productions wouldn't be as elaborate, it was still part of what was expected in Ballinrobe. The community expected that this would be done every year, and it was part of the culture and the heritage of the community, because it was, there was a few light operas put on for 1944 to 1948, and then for some reason they stopped and were revised in 73. And I think that people were so delighted that it had been revised that they were going to ensure that it was going to continue. But it meant a lot to the people. It was part of the calendar of events in town, one of the major, maybe one or two events in town that was really meant so much to the people, and they supported it so well, and through sponsorship and through their attendance in the audiences and that, and there was great support, and there was a great social element to it as well, as much as there is today. But in its time, it meant a lot, and it was something that was enjoyed, and people, families in the town understood and expected their families to take part. The male chorus, the male choruses there were so large that other societies were envious of us and still are envious of us. And that all goes back to, I think, where the families in town, it was nothing unusual to get involved in the musical, and going on stage was something that was almost expected.
Yeah, and obviously you became chairperson for a time at one point, but who were the kind of the main driving forces behind the musical during them early days?
Well, Dr. Gucky, has to be said, was the main driving force there, because he became chairman, which was inaugurated in 1973, and Dr. Gucky unfortunately passed away after about 6 or 7 years, and but he was the driving force. He was a great individual because nothing was a problem. Now, of course, it wasn't as, I suppose, as onerous a job as it is today, possibly because there was no orchestra, there was no sound, and Courtney Kenny came over every year, produced it, played the piano, and basically it kind of ran stiff. What Doc Guckin had to do was make sure there was a cast there and get on with it. But he certainly kept it alive and drove it until he's on death, unfortunately. And then I was asked to take it over as chair on his death, and did so for a number of years, for 6 or 7 years, I forget. But he was really the driving force at the time. But as I say, in the town hall, it wasn't, the job as chairperson wasn't as demanding as it was when we went to the school, because the shows became more progressive and there was more expected, and there was more of a demand. And of course, when we got to school, sets got bigger, more room for expansion there. And as you know, we became one of the top societies in the country, which was something that was never dreamt of back in the occasion when we were at the town hall. Indeed, Ames wasn't even mentioned, and it wasn't even, I think, an organisation up to the late 70s, early 80s. But yeah, that was the driving force there was Doc Gucky through those early years. And of course, Sister Frances, in fairness to her, she, I think, actually was the main instigator for reviving musicals. And of course, she did the first number of shows. I think she did the first Pirates and the Review, and then I think they went to other people, then likes of the Protestant minister that I mentioned, who produced it, And then you had, I think, what's his name? He had a supermarket in town. I can't think of his name now. He should, of course. But he, I can't think of his name. But he produced, I think, it was the Gondoliers one year. And as I say, then Pat Kenny, of course, Pat Kenny came into reckoning, and he took the productions forward and brought it up to another level. And it kept going from there until, of course, we brought in other producers then after that. You know?
Yeah, and the community school then was constructed in the early 90s. So your time in the own town hall eventually came to an end. So what was that like, coming from the town hall into the musical over the other side of the town? The community school, rather.
Sure, it was, it was a whole new beginning for us, really, because the hall itself and the facilities up there were something that we never experienced before, and certainly other societies were very lucky to have those facilities. It was it allowed for a whole new dimension to the shows, and of course sets took on a whole new meaning. And we were very fortunate in having the likes of your dad and Pat and a whole crew of people whom took upon themselves to create sets that were absolutely incredible. And people used to come to the show to see the sets, if nothing more, I think. And it was something that brought in a whole new vista to the society, and allowed us to put on productions and create productions that were the envies of the country, really, because stage allowed itself for that, and the hall allowed itself for that, from the fact of preparing the sets, having the time to do so, and the room to do so, and realizing the outcome of it. So it was a whole new beginning for the society, and it allowed us to express ourselves far more than what we were able to do so in the town hall, in the old town hall.
Yeah, and people often.
Sorry, by the way, Walter Lottery. Walter Lottery was the name I was trying to think of. I couldn't get it in the head. Walter was a producer for, I think, the Gondoliers one year, and you had a lady by the name of Carol Coleman as well, who was in Kong. So there's a whole series of people who got involved along with the way, and we were very fortunate that they were there to be able to assist and get the society, the productions going in those years. And then, as I say, you said, when we went to the school hall, we people got involved who were, I suppose, nearly almost semi-professional in productions. And eventually with Peter Kennedy, who was he's a professional producer, and we have continued in that vein since then.
Yeah, and people often remark about the GA in the last 20 years, how it has gone to a new level, kind of, in terms of professionalism, and the fact that you have amateurs playing the game, a game that in fact has become amateur in all but name. Over your years in the society, you can attest to the fact that the standard of shows and the level of preparation and production that goes into them has changed radically as well. Would you fair to say it? When did you kind of start to see that happening first?
I think there was a sign of it the last 2 years, maybe in the old town hall. Certainly when we went into the school, it allowed us to develop and to express ourselves, as I said earlier, and having the availability of the craftsmen like your Dad and Pat and many others who came on board, all right up to the present day with Ken McCarthy and all these people. They were able to express themselves as well from the sets point of view, and really that's when it really took off, and culminated, of course, as you know, in 2010 with the Pirate Queen in winning the overall production, which was something that was phenomenal, really, because we were competing, and you are competing against communities far larger than us, in cities, in Belfast, in Dublin, Galway, in these areas. And to think that a community size of Ballinrobe and this area could achieve that was extraordinary, really, and to the testament to the people involved. And I think that it was just proper recognition for what was done through the years, from the time that it was revived right up to the present day. And I think that it was, only appropriate that we achieved that at that time, and we're still achieving plaudits. And I suppose we'd be reckoned to be one of the top half dozen societies in the country, even as of today,
Yeah, and that kind of period in the society coincided with, I suppose, the first show I would have seen would have been in 2001. So I'd have been of a generation that has been, maybe has only seen shows in Ballinrobe for the past 20, 25 odd years or so. And during that time, obviously, there've been some like really outstanding shows. There's ones that stand out for me, like Fiddler on the Roof, Ragtime. Of course, you mentioned the Pirate Queen, Chess. Would you be fair to say that was some of the best stuff that the society ever put on during that period?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, you mentioned one there, Ragtime Musical. That was, excuse me, that was the fabulous show, and it was something that music from that had never been heard before in around the country. Actually, I remember we going down to see it I think it was in Thurles with Pat and ourselves went down, and we saw it down there done very differently. But our production certainly superseded that big time. They did it in a very, very minimalistic way. But whereas here, everything was done to produce in such a manner that it gave great effect to what the music was all about, and through the history of that era. But there was a terrific set and fabulous music in it. But yeah, Fiddler on the Roof, of course, the Pirate Queen stands out on his own. And but there were and the Titanic, of course, is another one. Incredible set, incredible music. So it's very, very difficult to pick out one from the other. But there will be, I think, 3 or 4 that would certainly be at the top of the list. And societies would find it very difficult to present those shows like Ragtime and the likes of the Titanic, because of the image you got to get across and the sets you got to provide for it. But the Titanic was done so well, with lifeboats being dropped and rescued from the sea and this kind of stuff. It was really extraordinary. And of course, with Ragtime the musical, then you had people, a neighbour of yours out there, John Connery, being flown in a high wire straight onto the stage. We had helicopters coming down. I mean, this stuff was really something that is not seen in amateur productions throughout the country. Yeah, you can see professional stuff, but I mean, ours was touching on professionalism to the extent that amateurism was forgotten about at that stage. And I think people were just in awe of what they were seeing on stage.
Yeah, and I mean, we could talk for hours about any of them shows that you mentioned there alone, but one thing that I would have seen a lot throughout the years as well, that maybe not a lot of other people would, was the work that go into the stage. I often remember going in there on cold winter mornings like this, sampling what you were putting together and watching it slowly come together week by week. Can you just give people an idea of the kind of, just to focus on the set alone for a couple of minutes, like what sort of work has been going into that in the time that you were closely involved with it?
Yeah, well, obviously the school was made available to us from, we'd say, Christmas on for about 5 weeks. And I mean, only for the likes of your dad and Pat and those people at that time, sets wouldn't have been created. But I remember I think we started maybe a day or two before Christmas on one occasion. But I remember St. Stephen's Day was really the day which we set about constructing them and making them up. But I remember being down there outside the school, meeting Pat. You couldn't, the frost to be on your nose and the roads as well, and opening up the school and getting in, and we'd have the materials brought in there already from the local stockists. But to start out with a diagram that had been agreed, or a plan that had been agreed between the producer or director and the lads in the construction crew. And it would take itself from there. The stage was the first thing. The extension of the stage was the first thing that was put on. And once the extension was created, then it allowed for the sets to be created. And usually there was a sets on stage left and right. More often than not, they were put on, shall we say, casters with the revolving set to allow for different scenes to be created. And the lads would make some of them on the floor, some of them up on the stage. But there could have been up to a dozen guys there working, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays. Obviously, the whole place had been a mess on Sunday evening. Everything had to be brushed, cleaned up, made available for school hours again the following morning. But I must say that the school are very accommodating, and as I say, it was great to be able to have the access to the school for that particular work. But you know, there was an incredible amount of work put in over, we'd say, 4 or 5 weekends, long hours over the Friday night, Saturday night, particularly, and those days as well. And of course, we'd have to get the food down to feed the lads. I would have been the general gopher with the car and the trailer going up and down town, collecting stuff, whenever the lads would shout out. But we found it very enjoyable. It was a great camaraderie there. And we got to know so many guys that we would never have met and known. And we had great chats there and great, as I say, crack, and stories being told and music being played. So it all meant that, you know, everybody enjoyed what they were doing, and but provided you had people leading it and they knowing what was required and what was going to fit on the stage, and more importantly, what was going to work on the stage. Because some of these sets, you know, really very expertly, because if they were roughed in any way or moved in the wrong direction, it could cause havoc. But they were so large, some of them, that really took quite a bit of handling for the stage crew to manage them. But it meant, of course, that they were extremely impressive, and people, as I said earlier, you know, were just amazed at what was achieved. But yeah, there were a month really of hard work and nighttime work, and as I say, it was done all in a very good jovial manner, but deliver the good stuff, certainly.
And we could talk for hours about, you know, just the ins and outs of building the stage for any one particular show. But is there any particular set that you take particular pride in out of all the ones that you were involved in building?
But it's very hard to take one from the other. But I think Nighttime the Musical had an incredible set. It was a 2-story house that opened out, and that was something that I don't think a society in the country could have actually achieved ever. And of course, Titanic. So really, between the two of them, Pirate Queen, look, the creation of the boat on stage. I mean, who else would have done that? Who else could have achieved that other than the crew in Ballinrobe? I mean, it came out of nothing. And so really, it's very difficult to take one from the other. And I suppose the more I think about it, that particular scene in the Pirate Queen with the boat rocking from one side to the other, and created out of nothing on the stage over a period of what number of seconds, 20, 30 seconds, which was timed to the second, and was, I think, really received so well by the audiences that I think they began to applaud when the boat actually was created on the stage. So those things are something that we'll always remember. And we were so lucky that we were, I suppose, involved and able to experience all that, and to think that you know, we did it for the enjoyment of ourselves and indeed the audiences, and of course the society itself, for those on the stage who were able to experience what was created. Now, of course, you know, the members of the society would come for rehearsals, and this was all going on in the background. All these sets were being created, and they, you know, they certainly appreciated what was being achieved and how they were able to use them on the stage as well. And I think that, but they didn't really, I suppose, really fully realise the amount of work and the hours that went into this and the craftsmanship that went into making those sets. It was while I was there and seeing this going on and seeing the ability of the lads to create these fabulous, extravagant vistas was something to behold. And of course, when the lights came on them and the production started, it really, the hairs are standing in your chest.
Yeah, and of course, I think it's fair to say that the Pirate Queen does hold a special place in everyone's heart that's associated with the society. But you mentioned it to me before, all the years you've been involved, that was probably maybe your favorite show that you were ever involved in as well. What was particularly significant about the Pirate Queen for you, given that you've been involved in so many other shows over the years?
But I suppose, first of all, Eugene, it was the World Amateur production, first was the only amateur production at the time, and it was the premier amateur production in the world. And we were so lucky to get the rights of it from the Riverdance people, and Murray Colgan and John McColgan, Murray Doherty and Sean McColgan. And what we did say to them when Pat and I met them in Dublin that spring, we did say to them that, look, we can ensure that this production, if we get the rights to this production, that will be the best amateur production that could be done in the country. And we gave them that guarantee, and that guarantee was fulfilled. And I think that it was the fact that it was a Mayo team. It was written by, as you know, the writers of the Les Mis, Michel Bublé and co. And the fact that it was produced and staged in New York for a period of time under professional production, and had never been done by an amateur society, had a mystique about it, and it meant that we were going to, ensure that this was what we were about in putting on a production that could be the best in the country. And we knew that it had all the ingredients to do that. It had the Mayo theme, and it had the music and the whole, all the elements that we thought were going to make it this something special. And of course, that it turned out to be that. And the orchestra that was compiled for it, and the director and the production, the musical directors, they all bought into it. And I must say that, we bought into such a way that the society made sure that there'd be no expense spared in ensuring this was going to be a production, an exceptional production. And, the fact that it cost, I think, something like 140,000 to put on this. And I think we made money on it. And that meant that there was obviously a lot of work done on the promotion, on it, and on the sponsorship. There was an amount of work done in the background. But I think there was a great anticipation right from the very beginning from the people in the town, from the community, as to what this was going to be about, because we heard so much about it and we were promising so much. So it all came about, and it turned out so successful in the end. And I suppose the best night that I can ever experience was the night in Killarney, when it was announced that the Pirate Queen had won the overall production for that year, for 2010. And it was a marvelous achievement and a culmination that I think was well deserved by the society. And we continue to grow from that experience.
Yeah, so you obviously served as chairperson for a good length of time as well, Mick. I've heard our current chairperson, Des Tracy, describe it to me as an 11-month-of-the-year job nowadays. Is it fair to say that that's the kind of work that's involved, even though the show only runs for a week?
Yeah, you're breaking up there, small bit, Russian. Yeah, certainly it's demanding. It's a very demanding job. It certainly requires a lot of dedication and a lot of delegation as well. And but I think that we're so lucky that that there are so many people there capable of taking on the different roles in all the facets of the production, that it does help enormously, because otherwise one person could not just deal with all the elements associated with putting on a musical to the extent of the caliber of what is being done at the moment and has been done throughout the years. There's no doubt about it, takes up a dedication, and of course there's always problems. It's never without a problem. There's issues that will occur and you got to deal with them and have to be dealt with. So it is once, and of course the biggest problem of all, I suppose, our decision is deciding on the show that's going to be produced that year. So that starts, as you know, probably around the early spring, summer, and then it evolves in getting people in place and getting rehearsals started and getting your production team in place and arranging the stage crew. And that there's an amount of work there for a chairperson, incredible amount of work, and it is sometimes difficult to understand unless you're really in the thick of it. And there are problems there that you have to deal with that nobody would hear about. And obviously, you know, problems that will occur right just not before the show, but during the show, and they have got to be dealt with as well. But I think that these can be and are dealt with and can be resolved pretty reasonably well when you have people so keen to work with you and to give you the backup and take on responsibilities themselves. You know, during the week of the show, from the front of house right to the backstage, to the ladies who are so dedicated to looking after the cast with the food during the nights. And that there are very few societies in the country that have that backup, that can back up for the cast and crew. Very few societies that will get such attention during the interval and before the show. And I think that we are probably a bit spoiled in that respect, that when you go to other societies, and I've been involved in other societies, involved in Wexford, in Burr and Portlaoise, and you know, you didn't have that support whatsoever. You wouldn't get a cup of tea at half time, you know. So I think that it's been a tradition throughout the years here in Ballinrobe, where the community bought into it, and that has assisted the management of the society greatly in ensuring that things run smoothly and that productions are what they are.
Let's fast forward now to February 2020. You were swinging your swords around the place and jumping around and cheering and whatever. Little did we know, I suppose, what lay ahead. There will be no show, of course, this February. And how do you feel personally about, you know, not being involved this year? It must be something you miss quite a lot.
Oh yeah, oh, certainly, yeah. But of course, the fact that everything else has been abandoned, I suppose, you know, makes us all equal in the sense that none of us who are interested in any other activities can participate in them. So, but yeah, look, this week particularly, I suppose we'll be starting maybe tomorrow night, I think, or maybe tomorrow night week. We'll be in the throes of it. And what show will be done, we just don't know. But yeah, it's something that I've just, you know, you have to knock your head and say, gee, you know, it's not happening this year. What are we going to do? But obviously, look, the main thing is that people keep safe, and that we will be safe for the future. What happens next year? It's difficult to say. Obviously, nobody has a silver wand that look into a crystal ball and gaze, but there may be some chance, maybe late in the autumn. But look, I wouldn't want to speculate on that. But the chances of maybe production in this time next year could be, rather, I think, maybe not very reasonable to think that it could occur, you know. But it's something that we only have to put up with. But I've no doubt, though, that when the time is right and when the lockdowns and the vaccines come in, the lockdowns are lifted and vaccines are successful, that there's no doubt that we'll be back where we were. We'll be back where we left off, and hopefully we'll be all together again. And that I think that the enthusiasm will still be there, if not more so, because people will now realise, I think, and we are realising what it meant to us to have that outlet and to be among a group of people who wanted to do what we like doing, and that is producing productions for the benefit of our audiences and the community. So I think that it will be successful in the future. I think that it will regroup. Whether some of us will be regrouping as good as we were, we don't know, but we hope that we'll still be able to move a small bit anyway as we're getting on. And we'll have still the core of people who want to do this, and that could get more young people involved. And I think that's very possible that there'll be the enthusiasm there for that.
Right, Mick, just to finish up with a couple of quick questions, could you give us your favourite song from the shows?
Oh gosh, look, there've been some great songs. I mean, the great songs out of Ragtime, the musical, Wheels of a Dream, sung by Dave Langan. That was a fabulous thing. It was Sean Costello sang stuff there, Pirate Queen. But I think a chorus that, to me, one of the best choruses of all really is in Oklahoma. And I know that it mightn't be have the ingredients of the more classical shows, but it's hard to be a full chorus in flight, singing Oklahoma with an orchestra and as a round-up tour show. I think it was one of the finest you can get. But you know, if you want to go into the ones like Titanic, there was beautiful ones there as well, and so they all have their own significance. But I go for the place in the course of the Oklahoma. It's a great winter.
Your favourite scene from any show? It doesn't have to be a Ballinrobe show, but any show that you've seen.
I suppose Les Mis really have to be to see some Les Mis. I know we didn't do it, probably may not ever get the opportunity to do it, but and having said that, I think that if we did, it'd be done, I think, to a quality that would be very difficult to beat. But I think the scenes in Les Mis musical of the Barricades is something that I'd love to be involved in that and to experience the music that Michel Schoenberg wrote, who of course did the Pirate Queen with the Bublé as well. But that is, I think, one of the scenes that I would really love to see and to experience it. Very hard to beat it. But it's hard to believe that the Michel Schoenberg, you know, stood on the stage in Ballinrobe and came back to us afterwards in the cast and spoke to us, and think that that individual had such an extraordinary quality and was such an individual and produced quality like he did with Les Mis and indeed with the Pirate Queen, and had yet had the person that he is to be able to come to and speak on the stage in Ballinrobe and to express himself there, and for the gratitude that for us doing that, I think is something that will always live in our memory. The great nights that we had.
Your favourite show?
Favorite show? I think it has to go for Ragtime, the musical. I think, I know the Pirate Queen was special, but I think Ragtime musical had stuff in it that was very hard to beat. And I think it had such varied scenes in it, and it took such dedication and work from all aspects, all around, that I go for Ragtime the musical. And I think it's been done very, very seldom because of the difficulty of it, the difficulty of doing so.
Yeah, that makes two of us. Yeah, Ragtime is number one for me as well. And finally, your number one moment being involved in Ballinrobe Musical Society, what would it be?
Oh, I think, Oisin, there's no doubt about that, but that was the Gleneagle Fair, the night that, and you'd even get emotional thinking about it because it was such an achievement to hear that the society was now the #1 society in the country, and that among all our peers right around the country, that was accepted. And I remember the final night when we were in the Ballinrobe, having after the show, having a few drinks, and a few guys from Belfast were there, and they said, "Well, we can tell you that this is going to be the show, the production of the year." And we were saying to them, "Yeah, hardly that." They said, "No, we guarantee that will be the production," and they were right. It came about, and there was such pride in society. And it was such a great night down there. And I think everyone in the 800 or 900 people were there were so delighted that a society coming from a community like Ballinrobe could achieve what it achieved. And it was an All Ireland that I suppose very difficult to understand the achievement that was realised by the society that year. And I think it was a pinnacle. But I think we haven't gone down from then. I think we've kept the standard up, and we will continue to do so.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, Mick Sweeney, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. No doubt we could go on for a lot longer if we wanted to. But with the help of God in the not too distant future, we'll see you back on the stage again with all the others. Mick Sweeney, thanks very much for joining us.
Very welcome, Josh. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.